In today's video, we will help you prepare yourself for an uncertain financial future and show you how to earn more through better financial decisions. Money management is not simple. It requires knowledge of financial products, investment, risk analysis, and knowledge of tax information. But not many people talk about human mind influencing our different decisions. Hence, we can say that good money management requires an understanding of how we as humans make mistakes. Today, we will discuss the information you need to manage your finances. By gaining insights from the emerging science of financial decision making, you can stop following the emotions that can potentially take you down the wrong path. But first, please like and subscribe to support us. Ways in how the brain influences financial decisions. There are two primary brain parts in money management. Your brain is in a constant struggle when it comes to financial decisions. You know what you should do, but you often don't do it. The reason for that is that you don't have just one cognitive system. You have two primary brain parts that influence how you respond to money. Most people believe that they should save more than they are currently saving for retirement, and they also admit that they actually don't do anything about it. When you are planning for the future, you use a small part of your brain right behind your eyes called the prefrontal cortex. This part of your brain likes to think it is in control. In fact, when you are faced with evidence that it is not in control, it goes to great lengths to justify why you, for example, bought the music system you didn't want in the first place. The truth is that the prefrontal cortex you use in conscious decision making is not really in control. The limbic system. This system is faster and more efficient, and it is the part that you use most often in your daily tasks. Financial planning causes a struggle between both the rational brain and the emotional brain, because this planning not only means knowing what to do but also how to create an implementable plan. That means recognizing that you will be tempted to spend with credit cards even if you don't want to, especially if you had these problems in the past. Economists call the conflict between the rational brain and the emotional brain hyperbolic discounting. Experiments have shown that we as buyers have a tendency to be very impatient when making decisions in the present and are rather patient when making decisions about the future. In a brain scan, the prefrontal cortex lights up when you engage in planning for the future, but the limbic system lights up when making decisions right now. Most of you have a hard time resisting the temptation to buy things. The best way to resist any temptation is to get rid of it. Savings accounts are a great example of a concept known as framing and are used by financial planners for decades to help their clients meet long-term goals. How to stop the temptation of spending money. Following are a few tips to stop the temptation of spending money. 1. Use a separate savings account. If you deposit your paycheck into your checking account, it becomes easier, and it's definitely going to get spent. A better strategy can be to deposit the paycheck into a separate savings account and then transfer the money to the checking account when needed. The savings account spends time to transfer money to a checking account, and in that time, you use your rational brain. This will reduce your annual spending by thousands if you force your rational brain to intervene like this repeatedly before your limbic brain. 2. Loss aversion. Your emotions have a difficult time dealing with losses. The best answer to the question of the reason why you dwell on losses is that loss aversion gave your ancestors a better chance of survival. If they freaked out when they lose some of their stash of winter food, then they were more likely to make it to the next harvest. But this emotional response is not useful in modern financial markets. Or you can say that it is the reason why many people underperform in the current market. They buy the wrong insurance and avoid taking sensible risks. Studying loss aversion is fascinating because most of us seem to give a lot more weight to small losses than large ones. This is not rational because small losses are a normal part of taking any risk, and you get rewarded for accepting risk. People buy an expensive insurance plan to protect themselves against the loss of just a $500 phone, but they will not raise their liability limits on a bigger car insurance plan to protect themselves against a bigger loss. Focusing on the original point or reference point. People tend to focus on one reference point. This means if you start a new investment plan, for example, you will tend to focus on the original amount you invest and compare all your results to this one reference point. Some investment advisors do try to change their clients' reference points by providing annual statements, which don't show a loss from fluctuating markets, instead of quarterly statements. Risk tolerance. Loss aversion means you tend to not care enough about your gains, at least not as much as you care about your loss. Experiments show that a person feeling unhappiness from a loss is greater than the pleasure they get from an equal-sized gain. The happiness that they get from a gain is called risk tolerance. If a person is risk tolerant, or if their knowledge allows them to control their emotional responses, then they will be willing to lose money in order to make more over time. They will begin to accept the losses as an inevitable part of reaching their long-term financial goals. If someone can control their loss-averse tendencies, they can achieve a long-term bonus by accepting investment risk. Case study: the 2008 stock market crash. The 2008 stock market crash was brutal for almost all investors. The financial advisors fielded dozens of calls from investors who wanted to stop the emotional pain and pull out their shares of the market. The stock prices went through cycles, and it was rationally the worst time to sell the stock as after prices have fallen. At that time, the rational part of the brain of most investors was overruled by a more powerful emotional part. Investors pulled large amounts of money out of stock funds till the market hit bottom. This resulted in the investors who freaked out and sold $100 in stock in early 2009, and invested it in other places would have earned a few dollars by the summer of 2013. But the investors who were more patient saw their stock investment climb more than double, to about $250. Behavioral barriers and a good money management. Following are a few behavioral barriers and a good financial plan. These are used by companies against you to lure you into their traps. Do you know why some companies overload you with information? A common sales tactic is used by them, which is useful because your prefrontal cortex is slow and gets tired easily when you have to make too many decisions. For example, a car salesman overwhelms the customer with complicated information. When they are faced with information overload, they just want to make a decision and go home because their emotions have overwhelmed their weaker rational brain. Brain fatigue. It can also lead to bad decisions when you have to choose a mortgage, make an offer on a house, or even agree to buy an investment product from a salesman. A simple solution to this bigger problem is never make an important financial decision without sleeping on it. This is a piece of conventional wisdom that can be very well explained by neuroeconomics. Limitation of rational brain. One limitation of your rational brain is a tendency to focus on more easily available information. For example, people tend to worry more about flying in an airplane when they see or hear about a recent crash, but they ignore the fundamental probabilities that this event will occur when they overweigh recent events. This tendency to focus too much on recent events affects your general sentiment about the economy. If there is a growth in economic expansion, people tend to buy more stocks because they tend to be optimistic about the future. But on the other hand, when there is a recession, they tend to be pessimistic and start losing their liking for risky assets like stocks. The cycle of optimism and pessimism. This cycle directly impacts the expected return on stocks. When sentiment is low, let's say because of some national tragedy, the stock prices fall. What you should do is rebalance your portfolio by selling bonds and buying more stocks. The opposite of what your emotions would tell you to do. But when sentiments are high and stock prices rise, this can be a good opportunity to sell your stocks and rebalance your portfolio into bonds. But the reason why this is difficult is that it means that your rational brain has to override your emotional brain. You can do that by reminding yourself of previous market recoveries, where you can choose investments that automatically rebalance and avoid the risk entirely. Best retirement plan. The human brain tends to follow the path of least resistance. Humans often overestimate their future willingness to change their bad habits. Recognizing that you are probably going to be just as lazy tomorrow as you are today can help you select strategies that are more likely to work. Most advisors use a secret to get a client to save more for retirement. All they do is have them bring in a retirement form from their offices. They insist on filling it out during the meeting, and then mail it back. This helps in a manner that once an employee starts saving more and more for their retirement, they tend to stop noticing the drop in their paychecks. Research also shows that retirement savings are sticky. Once a person chooses a percentage or monthly savings amount, they stay at that amount forever. Barriers to sound financial decision making. Knowledge to gain success. Knowledge of something doesn't always equal implementation. For an investor, what is more important than knowledge is the ability to use that knowledge to change long-term habits and take steps in the right direction. Overconfidence. It is another behavioral barrier to good financial decision-making. Studies have shown that men in particular seem to believe that they can do better than the market. Unfortunately for them, researchers have found that these overconfident men tend to trade too often, and this frequent trading leads to investment performance that is lower than that of investment accounts owned by women. If you are a man, the best way to improve your investing performance is to take a dose of humility and stop trying to beat the market. Winning and losing stocks. The last important finding from investment research is that all humans have a tendency to sell their winning stocks and keep their losing ones. It is painful to lock in a loss by selling a stock that has fallen in value, but it makes us feel good to lock in gains from a winning stock. Investors will most predictably sell their winners and keep their losers.